I'm Dr. Rudi Newman, a historian and author working with Hertfordshire's Library Service, and in this series we'll be revealing some of the important, obscure and sometimes unusual stories to be found in Hertfordshire's history. Croxley Green today is largely a commuter settlement, part of the 1920s Metroland project. Before this, however, the village helped create a major Hertfordshire industry, one that would make the name of its founder. John Dickinson was born in London in 1782, at the age of 15 being apprenticed as a stationer. With an eye for improving on methods of papermaking, by 1804 he had set up his own London business, and in 1807 patented his first major innovation. With the Napoleonic Wars still raging, Dickinson improved the paper used in cannon gunpowder charges, so they would not smoulder after firing. This had been a common problem, but now cannons could be fired more rapidly and with less risk of accidental explosion, a great benefit to the war effort. By 1847 he had applied for 14 patents, one of which was to be his greatest contribution to the industry. Paper at this time was largely handmade, using fabric rag pulp rather than wood pulp as today. A slow process, in 1809 Dickinson perfected mechanization of the process, using a perforated metal cylinder with a fine wire mesh turning inside a vat of pulp. Producing high-quality paper continuously and faster than previously by hand, he gained financial backing from MP George Longman, and in partnership with him under a new company, manufacture flourished. He purchased a former flour mill at Apsley that had already been converted to paper production, quickly followed in 1811 with a second nearby at Nash Mill. Coincidentally, another Apsley paper mill at Frogmore was the world's first to machine-produce paper. Then in 1828 he began construction of a third mill, purpose-built, at Croxley Green. Completed in 1830, these were supplemented by other mills at Batchworth near Rickmansworth and in Manchester for producing half-stuff, the rag pulp needed in paper manufacture. These locations were greatly aided by the canals as a source of transport, although they increasingly used for developing railways, at Croxley even ultimately having its own internal system. Unfortunately, the Croxley mill interrupted the view enjoyed by Lord Ebury, so as a consequence the building gained a faux Egyptian facade to better suit the fashion of the day. Technological advances continued, Dickinson developing silk thread security paper, naturally made with cotton, while in 1850 his firm developed mechanized gummed envelope manufacture. With the business transferring to his nephew, John Evans, he retired in 1858 and died in 1869, but the firm continued to grow. Formally incorporated as John Dickinson and Company Limited in 1886, Apsley Mill increasingly turned to stationery over the more general paper making at Croxley, the firm producing over 3 million envelopes per week. Such was the manpower needed that in 1889 the firm built 50 houses at Croxley, helping start the transformation of the village. Amenities for workers were also provided, such as a club and reading room, plus annual company excursions. Over the decades, and in spite of a serious fire at Croxley in 1924, production grew and many notable brands were developed, such as the Lion brand in 1910 and taking over Basildon Bond in 1918. By the 1930s, subsidiary companies were in operation from South Africa to Australia, while in 1929 the firm was the first to develop window envelopes. Dickinson's undertook war work during World War II, as with many other industries, in particular making anti-radar foil strips for the RAF, and after the war expanded into new premises in Liverpool. In 1966, John Dickinson and Company Limited merged with ES&A Robinson Packing of Bristol, creating Dickinson Robinson Group Limited, one of the largest stationery and packaging companies in the world. However, with changing markets and union problems amongst other issues, Croxley Mill was decreasingly viable and was closed in 1980. As for Dickinson's, the company was taken over in 1989 and various elements sold. The remaining Nash Mill, plus others elsewhere, closed, and after 187 years the company was no more, sold to D.S. Smith plc, thereby being a subsidiary of several international companies. With Croxley Mill demolished in 1982, this was the end of paper making around Watford, alongside printing having been one of its best-known industries. However, Dickinson's should be recognised not just for being the centre of one of Britain's largest paper makers, but also for the role John Dickinson and his company played in developing the stationery and paper materials that we take for granted today. If you would like to know more, there is plenty available, and Hertfordshire libraries are a great place to start, with many online resources alongside material in your local library. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thanks for listening.